Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome to our cozy little corner of the internet. I'm Pen and today I'll be reading It's Not Love If You Run When It's Hard by Lita Cakes. This is chapter 4 and it's a trigger warning for death because the last chapter happened and suicide happened. But anyway, make sure to take care of yourself and I'll see you guys in the fic. Chapter 4. The slamming door rattled Schroeder's cold heart in a way he didn't think was possible. Hitoshi ran after Izuku. He could hear them arguing quietly a moment later in the next room, but he couldn't make out the words. So, that left Schroeder with Chio's sister and a latent conscience. Why did he feel guilty? Because Izuku was right. He had seen a child in danger in what he thought was need, and he put his damn boot into the problem. That is to say, Inko's back. Damn boot into the problem. That is to say, Inko's back. While he would never feel guilty, he would never feel bad about arresting an abuser, he still felt guilty for overwhelming the boys after their exams. And now he felt guilty for assuming he could just hand the woman off to the police and everything would be fine. What a naive fool he was. He'll come around. What? Schroeder cleared his throat. What? Emmy was one of the elders in the community. She was in her early 30s, I think. Shizenzi-san was drinking sake from a small shallow dish, as was tradition, but she had several before speaking again. How did you hold all that liquor? It's horrible to lose one of the youngest, it's earth-shattering when an elder passes for them. As I'm sure you gathered, they have a mentoring program. The older ones protect the younger ones. As Osamu said, Izuku is like a son to him. It's not a metaphor. Today, Izuku lost one of his mothers, and one of the few women in his life who showed him the love and kindness show him what love and kindness means. Schroeder bowed his head, perhaps in shame or perhaps in grief. He entirely mistook everything. Sure, he had been told the Quirkless community was tight-knit, but to explain it like that, losing a mother, Schroeder remembered the death of his own mother a few short years ago. It had broken something fundamental in him, and he was doubtful that would ever heal. Schroeder sighed. I'm sorry, what can I do? Be with him. Ask him to teach you and mean it. Listen, observe their culture and do not interfere unless you're asked to. You have a lot to learn, the first of which is what thorn means. Schroeder arched an eyebrow. That's what the kid had called him, right? As Shizenzi-san stood up, she groaned from the effort and started to clean up. Schroeder helped her, waiting for the answer to his unasked question. You've heard the terms people use for Quirkless people, yes? Schroeder nodded. Null is the most popular. Well, Thorn is like that, but for quirked people. Are you saying he called you a slur? Yes. He was saying you understood nothing about the culture and that you just trampled all over it by putting your big fat boot into the problem. The older woman sighed. Schroeder followed her to the kitchen and placed the empty bowls in the sink. She thanked him with a nod and continued her story. Despite the abuse Quirkless people suffer, they try not to stir the pot, because that only makes things worse. What happened to Izuku tonight? That's far beyond the usual methods. Inko must have been drinking again. That's my best guess. She's usually not that cruel. You've treated him before? Several times, but you never reported it. Of course I have. What kind of surgeon do you take me for? But those forms are for matted reporters. Those forms of matted reporters have that stupid fucking question. That question that determines their eligibility for help. It's tiny and in a corner like it doesn't matter, but if you put NA for the quirk box, they'll throw the report out. Simple as that. You can't be serious. Oh, but I am, Schroeder. I've personally handed in those reports, watched the office laugh in my face, and put the report in the shredder. Inka would probably be released, but not due to the police, not because the police are corrupt, but because the laws that govern this country are corrupt. If Izuku goes home, it'll likely be worse than before. After a stunt like that, he'll likely end up dead. There was still so much Schroeder needed to know, but what did all the bands mean? Nezu had one, but he hadn't ever mentioned or said what the bands meant. What were they going to do about Izuku's mother if she was released? He certainly couldn't let the team go back home to that kind of horrible environment. One thing at a time. Schroeder shook his head. What do the bracelets mean? Ask Izuku. He'll probably not tell you everything, though. He won't tell you everything, though. Not at first. She lifts her sleeve, revealing a bright grey band ring on her wrist. This one means that I can help. I'm a supporter, a safe person. Ask him the other colours. Schroeder bowed and turned to leave, only for Shuzenzi-san to grab his arm and stop him. If he doesn't mention the orange, don't ask. That one's hard for him to talk about. Okay. For the second time, he stopped before leaving. Thank you, Keiko. Izuku finally just completely shut down. He couldn't keep arguing with Hitoshi over how he treated their new teacher. Sure, it might have been wrong to call him a slur or shove him, but Izuku didn't care. He was so fucking tired. He was tired of losing friends. He was tired of wasted life. He was angry at the world for what they did to Quirkless people. He was angry at his mother for what she did to him. He was angry at Hitoshi for not understanding his anger. It was so fucking stupid. It all came to a head with those damn acceptance letters. And his mind had just gone off the rails somehow. So, instead of exhausting himself with the argument, Izuku sat on his futon, staring out of the window at the night sky, trying to remember the words that stupid lullaby his mother would sing to him when he was little, when life wasn't ruined, when his friends weren't dead. Hitoshi was leaning on the wall next to the door, keeping his eyes on the ceiling with his arms crossed. He was a guard dog, like Osamu wanted him to be. Izuku knew it's what he needed, but certainly not what he wanted. Lavender blue, dilly dilly, lavender green. I'm shit at singing, so just a warning. The words just came to him. And so did the tears. But his chest wasn't aching, and he wasn't choking back sobs. He just cried. Hitoshi looked down from the ceiling, confusion written on his face. When I am queen, dilly dilly, you shall be king. Izuku wiped his hand across his face and sucked in a breath. Who told you so, dilly dilly, who told you so? 'Twas mine only heart, dilly dilly, that told me. I probably should put a trigger warning for how shit that singing is, so yeah, sorry. Slowly, almost as if he might scare a frail dog, Hitoshi moved across the room to where Izuku sat, and wrapped around him like a blanket, a question mark. Izuku didn't stop singing. Lavender green, dilly dilly, lavender's blue. If you love me, dilly dilly, I will love you. The door slid open, but Izuku ignored it. Let the birds sing, dilly dilly, let the lambs play, we shall be saved, dilly dilly, out of harm's way. Schroeder sat down across from them. At first he didn't speak. He let Izuku finish the lullaby and burrow his face into Hitoshi's arms for a while. Shuzenzi-san didn't follow Aizawa into the room, so Izuku assumed he wasn't going to get poked or prodded again for the night. Hitoshi snuzzed into his neck. silently asking him. Oh yeah, Hitoshi nuzzled into his neck, silently asking if he wanted to speak. Izuku shrugged. He really didn't want to speak, so Aizawa did it for them. Izuku. The teacher did something Izuku had not expected. He bowed, forehead to the ground. He bowed himself in half. I apologize for my ignorance. I would like to learn if you would like to teach me. If you would teach me. He sat up again with guilty eyes. I should have listened to Shisenji-san. I only made things worse. You want to learn? Izuku shrugged Hitoshi's arms off halfway. You want to learn my culture so you don't fuck it up again? Izuku, Hitoshi sighed. Right, sorry, I'm not in the right headspace. He cried his he rubbed his tired eyes. You really want to learn? Yes. Okay, first lesson. When one of us dies, we hold vigil. Emmy had a family that supported her, so there may be a funeral, which is rare. Funerals are rare? Aizawa asked. Izuku tilted his head back. Hitoshi kissed his forehead. Most funeral homes don't want to touch the body of a quirkless person. They're usually quickly cremated. Often their remains are left on a shelf unclaimed. We try to claim as many of them as we can, but not all funeral homes are willing to release the remains to non-family. Some don't care because of their former quirk status. Aizawa sighed. Okay, would I be able to observe? Izuku and Hitoshi exchanged a look. Izuku was concerned that their new teacher wasn't getting it, but maybe he was. Maybe he was actually trying to get it, and trying to put himself out there in order to understand. Okay, you can observe, but you stay by my side and don't speak. Understood? And Aizawa nodded. 2 days later, Izuku was standing in the rain on the same rooftop where they held Asami's vigil. But this time it was Emmy's photo on the altar. May was still out of town, but Hitoshi was by his side, holding an umbrella over their heads as he leaned over Izuku's shoulder. Their teacher, Shoto Aizawa, was standing behind them with his own umbrella, silent as the grave. They took turns telling stories about Emmy. There had been so few stories about Asami, but now everyone had a story to tell for Emmy's vigil. Izuku couldn't bring himself to speak. Despite Asami's reassurances, he still believed it was his fault for having taken Nami away away from her charge. He knew it wasn't fair to blame himself, but once that thought entered his mind, he just couldn't get it to leave. Asami finally took in front of the small crowd and cleared his throat. Thank you everyone, especially for those lovely stories. We're here to celebrate the life of Emmy Osaki. She was a mentor, mother, and sister to all of us. He took a moment to gather himself before continuing. Today, we mourn her transition from a lily to an orchid. It's not a graduation we want to see of any of our members, but we all know it's often unavoidable. Asami motioned to Nami, who stood up with a handful of red bands. Izuku felt his jaw quake and his eyes and throat burn. He refused to cry again. He wanted to be strong. Nami had forgotten her umbrella and walked through the rain, passing out red bands to each of the community members present. When she got to Izuku, she handed him the last bracelet. She clutched his hands and slipped the band over his wrist. You can't blame yourself, Izuku, she whispered. She left him with the band, which he turned over and over and over against his thumb. He needed to get it shortened, or maybe he'll leave this one big, just for Emmy. Her name was engraved on the outside, just like the other red and blue bands everyone wore. This was the first time in some years that a red band has been handed out to everyone upon the death of a member. Emmy was a long-standing elder in our community. She loved all of you, all of us. She was loved in return. She was loved well in return. Osamu slipped his red band around his wrist and one more to the large row of red bands along his arm. The elder usually wore them under his sleeve most of the time, but today almost everyone had worn their bands openly. Stay as long as you want. I'll take sunrise shift. What does that mean? Hitoshi whispered beside him. He'll stay till sunrise. He'll sit to sunrise as a way to send her spirit off with the night. He stays with her until she's ready to leave us. Izuku tilted his head to the sky while brushing a hand through Hitoshi's hair. He could feel the warm tears on his shoulder, but he ignored them. Hitoshi might not have known Emmy as well as Izuku had, but grief was grief in the end. As time passed, the crowd dissipated, leaving only a few people on the roof after a couple of hours. Again, it was nearing midnight before Izuku felt ready to move. He pulled himself from Hitoshi gently and said that he needed to have a word with Osamu, who was sitting at the altar. Izuku brushed his wet curls back, not minding the rain ruining his hair or his suit. He really needed to get this damn thing dry cleaned, but he hadn't been able to since he hadn't been able to really since last thing since he he hadn't been able to really look at the thing in the last 3 months since last vigil. Today, he managed to wash and dry it himself and make it look at least somewhat presentable. It had taken a lot of coordination and to sneak into his mother's apartment, but she was still being questioned by the police, so that made life a touch easier. There was no news yet if she was fully charged or released. Osamu, Izuku. Their hands clasped for a moment. Shuzenzi said I'm welcome to stay with her. Shuzenzi said I'm welcome to stay with her, but it just doesn't feel right. Hitoshi's foster parents have agreed to let me stay for a few days. I'll figure it out from there. You're always welcome in my place. You know that. Izuku smiled. I know, but you have your own worries. I spoke to Principal Nezu yesterday. They've awarded me with a full scholarship and a month grace period. When school starts, I'll be taken care of. It's only until summer break ends in a couple of months. Then I'll be taken care of. Good. Just call me when you need me, or hell, even when you want to, even when you don't, just call. He knew what his mentor was trying to say. He was worried, and he wanted Izuku to know that he had someone supporting him. I will. Give Emmy my love, yeah? He squeezed Izuku's hands once more and let him go so he could walk back to Hitoshi and Aizawa. Ready to go? Izuku turned to Hitoshi. Aizawa followed, still silent. It wasn't until they got a few blocks away to the train station that he finally spoke. How often do we die? Aizawa shook his head. I mean, how often do you have vigils? Same thing, Sensei. Aizawa sighed at his words. Izuku shrugged. Every 3 months or so. We're losing them younger and younger. It's just getting worse for them. I thought if I could be a hero, I could prove society wrong, and that maybe that would help, but I'm not so sure anymore. You can prove them wrong, Izuku. Hitoshi nudged his shoulders with a small grin. Yeah, I'm gonna try. I'm not giving up. I earned my place in UA. You did, and I plan to see you become the best damn hero this country's ever seen, kid. Aizawa ruffled his curls gently. This time, Izuku didn't flinch. That was progress, right? Come on, problem child. Again. I can't. Shota loosened his fighting stance. Izuku was on the gym mats, heaving oxygen into his lungs. The kid was strong and well trained, but he struggled with confidence. He also had a serious problem with shying away from incoming hits. Shota was doing the best he can to change that, but it was difficult not to feel guilty every time the kid flinched or put his hands up to cover his face. Kid, come on your feet. I'm exhausted, Shota. I know, it doesn't matter. Come on, up. Izuku groaned loudly as he rolled himself to his stomach, then onto his feet. He was barely standing straight, but Shota knew he was close. He was so close to making a breakthrough. They'd been working together for 6 weeks during the summer break. Hitoshi joined them on the weekends, but took care of his foster siblings during the weekdays. Mei was doing her own training, but Shota had met her a few times. Wild child she was. Majima was going to have a rough time taming that lion. After their fighting sessions, Izuku would drill Shota on Quirkless culture and statistics. He's been teaching the old hero a little for every few days. And Shota was getting more involved in their causes. He even wore a pin to match Hitoshi's now, right on the edge of his shirt collar. He'd become friends with Osamu over their shared interests of their charge, Izuku. Izuku was currently couch serving between Hitoshi and Osamu's houses before the year started. The dorms weren't ready yet, or Nezu would have offered that, and Aizawa was presently in the middle of moving out of his house with his husband into the half-finished teacher's dorm. Or he'd offer as well. Inka Midoriya had been cleared of all charges a mere 4 days after her arrest. Thankfully, they'd been able to get all of Izuku's belongings out of the house before she was released, and they were safely being stored at UA till he could move in. The kid didn't own much, which worried Shota, but he didn't voice that concern. He also didn't voice the horror of the kid's mother having absolutely no care in the world that her son just up and vanished from her apartment after she nearly killed him. Right now, his main focus was preparing the kid for UA. He had been able to spar with Shota in terms of fight. He had been on par with Shota in terms of fighting skill. He had to be on par with Shota in terms of fighting skill, or he'll never make it as a hero. These kids would chew him up and spit him out for fun. Shota knew that. It wouldn't be bullying, they'd just be using their quirks like they'd been taught. And Izuku had been ready for that. The class rosters weren't out yet, but Shota knew Izuku and Hitoshi were his students, and they both would need a lot of work. Hitoshi might have a quirk, but it was similar to Shota's in the sense that it functioned more like an aid to his fighting skill rather than a weapon himself. Recentering himself, he raised his fists. Alright, fine, do your worst, Izuku finally grumbled. You asked for it. They clashed. Shota dove at him, with about 3/4 of his strength and speed. Izuku kept up despite his exhaustion, but he still blocked every hit. He wasn't fighting. He was protecting himself. Shota threw a punch to his face, and Izuku blocked with crossed arms. If he snapped out a roundhouse kick, the kid would bare his arms by his shoulder. He had skill, but he was too scared to hit back. Hit me, Shota roared. I can't. Shota didn't stop his barrage. He threw punch after kick after punch, forcing Izuku to circle around the mats as he continuously backed away in an effort to protect his body. Stop fighting. Run me. You're not engaging. I can't get a break. Look for an opening. What did you say? Look for an opening. What did you say to me? Look for the kink in the armor? Look at my weakness. Shota knew his own weaknesses. That's how he protected them. He wasn't like every other hero who paraded along around thinking they were invincible. That was illogical. He knew his weaknesses, and he did everything in his power to guard them, keep them secret. But Izuku knew that. He knew Shota's weak points. Hell, he had shown Shota those terrifying notebooks. Take me down, I know you know how. He never stopped goading his student, making him angry. If he didn't rise to some kind of prodding, he'd never push past the damn blockage. Shota was well aware of his brutal way to try to get the kid to fight, but he didn't know any other way. Izuku was a defensive fighter, but to be a hero, he was going to have to find his offensive drive. Izuku covered his face, cowering from the blows that Shota never stopped throwing. He was backing into the wall, but Shota didn't stop. He was exhausted. He was exhausting himself, but he knew better than to go too far, but they were so damn close. Just as he was about to throw one more kick, he spun on his bad leg. The leg he broke during high school, trying to save his best friend from a collapsing building. Izuku's whole body posture shifted like he had seen something. He must have, because a moment later, Shota was on the ground in a grapple, his badly twisted leg at the wrong angle and aching painfully. Ah, shit! Izuku gasped. Shota tapped the mats, and Izuku released him. Did I? Yeah, you won, kid. Shota flopped onto the mats, sweaty and breathless. You finally won. I did that. Yeah. Your left leg is weaker than your right. You compensate really well but when you're turning, it tilts a little more than it should. It skews your balance. I know. Shota reached out to pat Izuku's cheek with a grin. It's hard trying to hide it when I'm tired. Ugh, I'm gonna have to ice it later. You got me good. But that was a breakthrough. Shota pulled himself up into a sitting position and knocked the back of his knuckles on Izuku's forehead. You've been stuck in defensive mode for too long. Your body didn't know how to do anything but protect itself. But when you become a hero, you have to protect everyone else. I saw that in the entrance exam. I know you have it in you. You just had to beat it out of me? Izuku rolled his eyes. Shota laughed. Yeah, well, sometimes we have to untrain our bodies the same way we train them. It sucks, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry I was rough on you the past few weeks, but I needed you to be ready to do more than just cover your organs when one of those kids throws a punch, or hell, a quirk at you. Right. Izuku stared down at his hands for a moment. Shota wondered what had made them so crooked and scared and scarred. He never asked, though. Thanks. Well, that's enough for today. We can pick this up tomorrow. Oh, May's coming back tonight. She wanted to join us for sparring tomorrow. Is that okay? I'll make sure we use the explosive-proof gym. Izuku laughed. Oh, come on, she's not that bad. Majima hasn't even met her yet, and he's already having Cementos build a bulletproof and explosion-proof lab. In the labs. The girl has a record, Izuku. Once again, his charge laughed. Shota was so blessed to hear it. The introduction had been so rocky, but now he was more than happy to hear Izuku laughing instead of crying. That first week, the vigil he attended was all burned into his mind. He never forgot what it took for Izuku to get where he was, nor how easy it would be for him to end up as a photo on that altar. Okay, she's a little dangerous. Shota glared at his student. Okay, fine, she's a lot dangerous. We're all very lucky she's on our side. Yeah, we're also lucky you didn't end up burning the world down. As he got up, he poked a thumb at Izuku's forehead. The kid swatted his hand away. This brain's more scarier than Nezu's. Almost scarier than Nezu's, actually. When it comes to quirk, I don't think I've ever met someone as intelligent as you. That's bullshit. Don't give me a big ego. Why not? Shota helped Izuku to his feet. You deserve to have a bit of an ego. You literally just assessed my previously damaged leg in the blink of an eye while we were fighting without ever knowing it beforehand. That's an incredibly rare skill, and it's one that win you most of your fights. Don't rely on it alone, but use it to your advantage. Right. Izuku walked off to grab their water bottles. Shota's was tossed to him. God, he needed it. He chugged the whole thing in one long succession of gulps. Oh. Shota grabbed his capture weapon from the bench by the door. 6 weeks and I keep forgetting to ask. Have you and Hitoshi trained his quirk together? Oh, yeah, we came up with a few combination moves. I'm more physical than he is, so we tried using that to our advantage. Smart. When he joins on this weekend, I want to see what you two have put together, if we have the time. Sure. Alright, kid. Go meet Ectoplasm by the gates. He's taking you home today. Thank you. Thanks for the lesson, Sensei. Much to Izuku's displeasure, UA, mostly Shota, refused to let him walk to and from wherever he was staying alone. Not since Inko had been released, anyway. There was no way of her knowing where he was staying at, but she knew that he was going to be a UA student, even if she had believed it was a lie at first, so Shota was taking precautions. The whole staff was more than willing to help, despite not knowing the whole story. So they took turns picking Izuku up and dropping him off. As Izuku trotted out of the gym, he waved his left hand, which rattled the metal bands around his wrists. Shota knew the meaning of all those colours now. He'd been there when Izuku received his second red band when Emmy died. Shota hadn't never met the woman, but everyone had spoken so highly of her. He couldn't help but silently wish her peace. He was well aware that it was now at least partially his responsibility to take care of Izuku and see that he makes it to adulthood and become a great hero. He worried, of course. He likely wouldn't stop worrying until Izuku was fully capable of defending himself without freezing up. Today was a good start, but that was the first time in 6 weeks he'd actually taken the offensive and put Shota down instead of just protecting his body and running away. Still, progress was progress, and Shota would be happy for that. Nezu's office was noisy when he arrived back at the school building. He was all sticky with sweat and needed ready for a damn shower and a nap. But he needed to talk to Nezu about the coming class rosters. They were still trying to place a few students between class A and B. As he closed in, he caught Nezu's voice with tight frustration, along with a voice he didn't expect. All Might. Shota, good timing. Uh-oh. That grinding tone was only reserved when Nezu was trying not to rip someone's vocal cords out of their throat with his teeth. Shota shut the door to the Chimera's office behind himself and walked up to the two older heroes with his hand tucked in his pockets. All Might, Nezu, All Might. To what do I owe the honor, number one? Eraserhead, it's good to see you. I was just discussing this coming term with Nezu. Why is that exactly? Wrong voice. Why is that exactly? He placed himself between Nezu behind his desk. This private schooling establishment has nothing to do with you or the HPSC. Well, that's where you're wrong. Shota's right eye twitched as he let the older hero explain. The Hero Commission has assigned me to mentor and teach its freshman students. No. Shota cut him off. Excuse me? I said no. The only way you'll teach my students anything is if I'm long dead, buried, and exorcised. Nezu, this is highly inappropriate. Actually, it's not. The Chimera was sipping on his teacup like he didn't have a moment ago. Because as I was saying, I won't allow you to be teaching our students. I don't care what the commission has to say about it. This school is a private institute, not funded by the government, meaning they have zero control over who gets to teach our young hero hopefuls. All Might sighed. He looked half defeated for only a second before he pulled out some formal letterhead document from his pocket and handed it over to Nezu. Shota read it over the Chimera's shoulders. As he did, rage boiled inside his chest. The commission were threatening to shut the school down under obviously bullshit means if they refused. Clearly, they knew what Nezu would say and they had been prepared for the outcome. What the fuck? Shota turned to the windows and paced around the room. Do they really think we're just going to go belly up when they threaten to shut the school down? UA is the foremost hero school in the country. On top of that, do they really want to sell Nezu? I accept. Excuse me? Shota blacked at Nezu. The Chimera simply placed the letterhead down. Shota could see the storm behind those beady eyes. Nezu was ready to burn down the commission. Shota took a step back. Toshinori-san. Shota backed up further. I'm only going to say this once, so please listen well. The giant hero did not look worried at all from Nezu's tone. Shota was well aware that this was out of stupidity, not bravery. At this point, Shota was against the wall. I will accept you mentoring the hero students, but you will not be teaching. You are not a licensed teacher. You have not been trained as a teacher, nor do you hold any education degrees like every single one of the licensed teachers on the school's payroll. If you, by some obscene lack of intelligence, decide to try to teach, I will, in no certain terms, make a slaughterhouse of your reputation, and whatever minuscule legacy you may leave behind. Nezu leaned forward, both paws on his desk. Am I understood? Where Shota was a weaker man, he would have fainted. All Might was, to his baffling credit, didn't even blink. Again, Shota was reminded of the man's single-digit IQ. I'll do my job as the #1 hero to make fine young heroes out of the incoming class. The hero's phone rang just as he left, and he just left without saying goodbye or being dismissed. Shota didn't leave the wall just yet. He waited until the heaviness in the room thinned out to just a few inches before approaching the former teacher, now boss. So, that man will not last here long. I'll make damn sure of that, Nezu growled. Nezu had never believed anything so completely in his life before. Thank you all so much for watching that. That was chapter 4 of It's Not Love If You Run When It's Hard by Leader Cakes. I really enjoyed the chapter and we're officially up to where I've read up to, so I've got some reading to do tonight. Anyway, make sure to take care of yourself and I'll see you guys later. Bye!